Ladies and gentlemen, there are moments in life when the very fabric of your existence begins to whisper of something greater, not louder but deeper, not faster but truer. It's a whisper that doesn't come through sound, but through circumstance, through silence, through the stillness you meet when everything around you seems locked, bolted shut, where your prayers feel unanswered, your efforts unrewarded, your strength near depletion. But I've come to tell you that locked doors are not permanent structures. They are often temporary guardians of things not yet ready to be revealed. And I believe, with every fiber of scientific clarity and spiritual certainty, that God is sending a favor-filled opportunity into your life that will unlock every one of them. I do not speak of favor lightly. In a world dominated by measurable outcomes and empirical observation, we often reduce life to what can be counted, tracked, explained. But there is something about favor, true favor, that defies quantification. It's not luck. It's not mere coincidence. It is divine orchestration that positions you in places your qualifications couldn't carry you, introduces you into rooms your background didn't prepare you for, and opens doors that generations before you were never able to walk through. As a neuroscientist, I've studied how the human brain responds to uncertainty, how it fires signals of fear, of self-doubt, how it clings to the familiar because the unknown feels like danger. But the same neural pathways that send signals of fear also hold the capacity for awe, for faith. The same brain that panics in the dark can, with the smallest shift in belief, become the chamber in which hope echoes loudest. And that shift doesn't happen when everything is clear. It happens when everything is closed. When the doors in your life, opportunities, relationships, breakthroughs seem inaccessible, yet something in you still believes. That kind of belief doesn't come from the mind alone. It comes from the spirit. The soul, I would say, is the part of us that remembers what heaven told us before we were born. It's the voice that says, "This is not your end. This is not all there is." And when that voice rises, even in the face of repeated rejection, something changes. You stop chasing doors that aren't yours. You start preparing for the one that is. I remember a young woman, bright, talented, compassionate. She applied to every graduate program in her field, dozens of them. Each response a polite, resounding no. Her peers advanced. She watched from the sidelines, wondering if she had misheard God, if her dream was merely her own invention. But she kept reading, kept studying, kept showing up. One day, a professor from a prestigious university stumbled upon an article she had self-published in a forgotten journal. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't perfect, but it carried weight. Within weeks, that door, sealed and unreachable, was flung open. She didn't just get in, she was offered a full scholarship. Her rejection didn't delay her. It preserved her for the exact moment favor was ready to find her. Why do I share that? Because some of you are in the hallway right now. You're in that in-between place where doors are closed and hope is thin. But just because a door is closed doesn't mean it is locked forever. And just because you can't see the handle doesn't mean it can't be opened. Often, it's not that the door needs a key. It's that time needs to catch up with what God has already written. Favor, when it arrives, rarely announces itself ahead of time. It doesn't knock politely. It arrives suddenly. And when it comes, it doesn't just open one door. It opens every locked door in a row, creating a corridor of purpose so undeniable that even your past begins to make sense. The delays, the detours, the despair, all of it starts to align as if it had always been building toward this moment, and in many ways it had. Modern science tells us about something called neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself in response to new experiences. Spiritually, we might call this transformation. When you begin to believe that God is not finished with you, when you begin to act like the opportunity is already on its way, your brain literally starts to build pathways in alignment with that belief. You stop looking for validation in places that ignore your value. You stop chasing people who treat you like a burden. You stop trying to open every door, and instead, you wait for the one that's been prepared for your arrival. That, my friends, is the intersection of faith and neuroscience. It's not wishful thinking, it's not delusion, it's the mind being renewed. And when the mind is renewed, life begins to respond in kind. Favor follows alignment, and alignment is born from trust. Not in systems, not in statistics, but in the unseen hand that has always been guiding your path. I want to say something here that may feel difficult to hear, but is deeply necessary. Some doors were never meant to open, not because you weren't good enough, but because they weren't aligned with the calling placed inside you. And every time you tried to force them open, you drained yourself of the strength needed to stand in front of the one God actually intended. We must stop grieving the absence of counterfeit favor and start preparing for the presence of divine appointment. I've known men who chased wealth for decades, only to find emptiness in everything they thought would fulfill them. But the moment they shifted from accumulation to purpose, from ego to service, doors began to open, strangely, effortlessly. What changed? Not the world, not the economy. Their alignment did. And with it came a favor that couldn't be bought, couldn't be brokered, only bestowed. And so I ask you, are you ready to receive what you cannot manufacture? Are you willing to stop striving and start trusting? Because the favor God is sending is not earned through hustle. It's attracted through alignment. It does not arrive when you finally feel worthy. It comes when you realize that worthiness was never the prerequisite. Willingness was. The door you are waiting for is not behind a system. It's behind surrender. And surrender, in its truest form, is not passive. It is the most courageous act a soul can offer. To say, I release what I thought my life should be, so I can step into what it was always meant to be. The door is coming. The opportunity is already in motion. God is not preparing the blessing for you. He is preparing you for the blessing. And when the two collide, when the version of you that has been shaped through delay meets the opportunity shaped through divine timing, there is no force in this world that can keep it from unfolding. You see, favor doesn't bend to the rules of this world. It doesn't wait for resumes, references, or reputation. Favor is the fingerprint of the divine on your life. And once it marks you, doors that were sealed shut begin to swing open. Not because of who you are, but because of whose you are. And in that truth, everything changes. The world may call it luck, the cynics may call it coincidence, but when favor walks into a room, you'll know, because the air shifts. The same people who once overlooked you will now be drawn to the very light they tried to dim. The same gates that stood tall in defiance of your efforts will creak open, not out of pity, but because they've been commanded to. When divine timing and divine favor meet, resistance loses its power. And I believe with a full heart that such a time is nearing for many of you listening now. What often goes unnoticed is that before favor arrives externally, it first does its work internally. You begin to see yourself differently. You begin to shed the layers of shame that were never yours to carry. You start walking into rooms as if you belong, not out of arrogance, but out of revelation. Because favor doesn't just open doors, it changes posture. It teaches you how to walk in authority, not entitlement, and it teaches you to wait, not with anxiety, but with assurance. Do you remember the story of Joseph? Sold by his brothers, left for dead, forgotten in prison, rejected in places where he had given nothing but loyalty. If we look at his life in fragments, all we see is heartbreak. But if we see it as a whole, it becomes a masterclass in divine favor. The locked doors weren't punishments, they were reroutes. The pit wasn't the end, it was preparation. The prison wasn't delay, it was development. And the palace? That was not the reward, that was the assignment. Because favor doesn't just lift you up, it plants you exactly where impact is needed most. And isn't that what we miss? We think favor is about elevation, but true favor is about placement. Being positioned where your voice can heal, your presence can shift atmospheres, and your obedience can change lives. You may be craving a breakthrough, but God is craving your availability. You may be pleading for open doors, but He's asking, will you walk through when it finally opens, or will you hesitate because it doesn't look like what you expected? We don't talk enough about the fear that follows favor. The opportunity comes, but with it comes responsibility. The stage appears, but with it the spotlight, and with the spotlight the shadows are exposed. This is why many never reach the rooms they pray for. They're still hiding parts of themselves they believe are unworthy of the blessing. But let me tell you this, favor does not wait for perfection, it only requires readiness. And readiness is not about having it all together. It's about saying yes when God says, now. There is something profoundly spiritual about timing. In physics, we talk about resonance, the phenomenon that occurs when one object, vibrating at the same natural frequency of a second object, causes the second object to vibrate. It's the unseen alignment of two forces creating motion. Spiritually, favor works the same way. When your heart starts resonating with heaven, locked doors cannot remain shut. What you once called delay was simply the absence of resonance. But when you're aligned, even silence becomes an invitation. Even stillness becomes movement. And how do you prepare for that kind of moment? Not by manipulation, not by pleading, but by deep, quiet trust, by waking up each morning and saying, I don't see the door, but I know the hallway is holy. I don't hear the knock, but I know the messenger is near. I don't feel the shift, but I believe the earth beneath me is already moving. And sometimes favor doesn't arrive with clarity. Sometimes it comes disguised as chaos, a job loss that leads to your life's mission, a heartbreak that births healing for others, a rejection that becomes your redirection. Favor doesn't always look like a blessing at first, but if you stay rooted, if you hold your peace, you will look back and say, that was the moment the door opened, even if I didn't see the handle turn. I've witnessed it with my own eyes. Patients who came in with nothing but pain leave with purpose. Individuals who thought they were forgotten step into favor that made them unforgettable. I've seen science meet spirit. I've seen faith awaken dormant parts of the mind, restoring hope where trauma once lived. And I've seen locked doors swing open for those who dared to believe they were not locked out, but being ushered into something sacred. This is not about ignoring reality, this is about redefining it. It's about seeing your waiting season not as punishment, but as protection. It's about understanding that sometimes God locks the door because you're not meant to go through it, but to be lifted over it. Some opportunities don't need a key. They need you to stop knocking and start listening. Start preparing, start becoming. Because the favor that is coming isn't just for your comfort, it's for your calling. It's not to elevate your ego, it's to expand the kingdom through your life. And that's why it's taking time. Because rushed favor often ruins unready vessels. But refined favor, it creates legacy. So if you're feeling delayed, discouraged, or doubting, take heart. You are not forgotten. You are being forged. Every disappointment is a chisel in the hand of the sculptor. Every tear is a drop in the reservoir of preparation. And one day soon, sooner than you think, the dam will break and everything that felt withheld will rush in with holy velocity, not as a trickle, as a flood. God is not just about to open a door. He's about to open every locked door that wants to find your limits. And when he does, don't shrink. Don't apologize. Don't question if you're ready. Just walk through it and let your life testify that the God who forms stars from dust can form a future from the fragments of your past. And let me offer you this. Sometimes the most locked door of all is the one within, the door that keeps your heart guarded, the door that keeps your past preserved like some sacred wound, the door you closed yourself because hope felt too dangerous to hold on to again. But favor doesn't only swing open the gates of opportunity, it swings wide the doors of healing, restoration, and self-worth. Before it ever moves mountains outside you, it begins by whispering to the mountains inside. Be still, be moved. There is a part of the soul that longs to be seen, not just by people, but by purpose. A part that aches to feel as though every battle carried meaning, and I assure you, it does. If only you could see what's being constructed on the other side of the veil. If only you could hear the conversations in heaven about your resilience. If only you could glimpse the blueprint that has been unfolding from the very beginning, you would weep, not from sorrow, but from relief. You would no longer beg for closed doors to open. You thank God they remained shut until the foundation of favor was ready to hold you. And when that favor comes, it won't come because you finally figured it out. It will come because grace said yes, because heaven had already declared, now is the time. It's not your cleverness, not your prayers perfectly worded, not your ability to avoid every mistake. It's the mercy of a God who sees beyond what you present and loves what you hide. And it is that kind of love that unlocks doors, not because it has to, but because it delights to. I often think about those ancient doors in cathedrals, heavy, weathered, grand. Some of them take multiple hands to push open, but once they do, you're met with a stillness that feels like it's breathing, a silence that sings. That's what God's favor feels like. When it lands, it doesn't come crashing in with noise, it comes wrapped in knowing. And suddenly your soul exhales. The tension of decades dissolves. You don't have to force it. You just walk through it. This, dear friends, is why we must cultivate spiritual patience, because impatience often breaks what was already breaking open. We jiggle the handle of every door, panicking that it won't open in time, while forgetting that God is both the architect and the locksmith. Your job is not to pry, it's to prepare. And preparation often looks like invisibility, like silence, like delay. But what appears as inactivity is often God moving you into spiritual formation, into a posture that won't collapse when the blessing arrives. I want to speak especially to those who feel like their season is one of repeated no's. Please listen. Every no you've received may have been a redirection, not a rejection. What if you've been praying for doors that aren't yours, and God, out of love, not cruelty, kept them shut? What if He's been saving you from the kind of success that fractures the soul, from the kind of opportunity that looks like gold but tastes like ash? There are rooms you've been spared from because the light in you would have been smothered there. Trust that. Favor doesn't mean ease. It means alignment. It means you're no longer climbing ladders that lean against the wrong walls. It means you stop performing and start becoming. You stop running toward platforms and start standing in presence. And it changes you, deeply, irrevocably. It gives you a quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't have to announce itself. It shows up. It serves. It shines. And doors respond to that. The most powerful doors don't respond to force. They respond to frequency. And favor has its own frequency. It cannot be replicated, fabricated, or manipulated. It is tuned to obedience, to surrender, to inner truth. And when your life begins vibrating at that frequency, you stop knocking in desperation. You start listening in faith. You start discerning between doors and distractions. Some of you are standing in front of what feels like the same old door, same struggle, same silence, same sigh at the end of another long day, and you wonder, when? And that is a sacred question, because it's in that space where longing meets trust that the deepest kind of faith is formed. The kind that says, even if the door never opens, I still believe the hallway is holy. The kind that knows waiting is not wasted when you're in the hands of a timeless God. If you've ever watched a sunrise from a mountaintop, you'll know this truth. There's a moment just before the light breaks when the darkness feels deepest. That is not a sign that the sun has changed its mind. It's a sign that the shift is near. And I say to you, many of you are in that final breath of darkness. Hold fast, because the door that opens next will not simply let in light. It will let in destiny. And when it happens, don't downplay it. Don't explain it away. Don't rush past it like it's normal. No. Pause. Thank God. Let awe wash over you. Let the memory of the waiting deepen your gratitude. Let the years you spent misunderstood now become your fuel for compassion. Let the silence become your wisdom. Let the favor humble you, not make you hard. Because that's the thing about favor. It's not about finally being seen, it's about finally seeing. Seeing the fingerprints of God over every delay, every tear, every roadblock. Seeing how mercy held you longer than you wanted, so you could last longer than you imagined. Seeing how the closed doors taught you to hear God's voice louder than the world's applause. And once your eyes are opened in that way, once your spirit has been trained not merely to wait for doors to open, but to become the kind of person who is ready when they do, everything changes. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this shaping in me? You begin to understand that God's greatest gifts often come wrapped in contradiction. Pain that leads to healing, silence that teaches listening, absence that cultivates appreciation. I want you to think about the oak tree for a moment. That towering symbol of strength and endurance starts as a seed buried in darkness. Beneath the soil, unseen and forgotten by the world, it breaks open, not because it's dying, but because it's preparing to live. In the hiddenness, it grows roots. In the silence, it learns resilience. And when it finally breaks through the ground, it does not apologize for its presence. It simply rises. That is what God is doing in you. He's growing roots, deep ones, strong ones, the kind that can hold the weight of the favor He's about to release, the kind that can stand when storms come, the kind that will not break when blessings grow heavy. Because, let us not forget, some doors don't open until your character is strong enough to walk through without falling apart. And so, as we talk about this favor-filled opportunity, let us not forget that its beauty lies not in how grand it looks, but in how perfectly it fits the version of you God has been forming. This isn't just any opportunity, It's your opportunity. Designed for the wounds you've healed from, the wisdom you've gathered, the quiet strength you've developed when nobody was watching. You won't need to strive for it. You'll simply need to step into it. Some people will call it sudden. They'll say, overnight success. But you and God will know better. You'll remember the nights when you cried more than you slept, the mornings you got up when you had no reason to, the battles you fought in silence while keeping a smile on your face. That's not sudden, that's sacred, and favor has a way of honoring the sacred in a way nothing else can. And to those who have felt disqualified, by failure, by past mistakes, by voices that told you you're not enough, I want you to hear this. God doesn't choose based on credentials. He chooses based on surrender. And if all you have is a willing heart, that's all He needs. Because favor isn't a reward for the flawless. It's a doorway for the faithful. And if you've stayed faithful, even in your doubt, even in your stumbling, even in your brokenness, you're already standing at the threshold. Let this be the season where you stop disqualifying yourself, where you stop rehearsing the reasons it might not work, where you stop shrinking back from the call that keeps burning in your chest. Let this be the season where you understand that God's favor is not fragile. It doesn't change its mind because of your detours. It doesn't expire because of your mistakes. When He sends it, it stays. And it opens doors that stay open. So be ready. Get your soul in order. Clean the rooms of your heart where bitterness has been collecting dust. Forgive the ones who shut doors in your face, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve the freedom. Let go of the timelines you created in panic. Let go of the outcomes you clung to out of fear. Make room for the unexpected, for the miraculous, for the favor that is unlike anything you've experienced before. Because when that favor arrives, it won't just change your circumstances, it will shift your atmosphere. Conversations will change, relationships will change, opportunities will find you instead of you finding them. You'll walk into places where you were once rejected and be welcomed with open arms. You'll speak and people will listen, not because of the volume of your voice, but because of the weight of your presence. And that weight, that's not pride, that's purpose. It will no longer be about proving who you are. It will be about being who you were always meant to be. Fully, freely, without apology. Because the door isn't opening just for you, it's opening through you. Your favor is not just your breakthrough. It's a beacon. Others will watch your life and find their own courage. Others will see the doors opening for you and dare to believe in doors for themselves. You will become living proof that God still opens what no man can shut. So don't worry if it hasn't come yet. Don't panic if it feels too quiet. Don't give up if the weight has worn you thin. The favor is already on its way. It's being carved in places you can't see. It's being whispered in rooms you haven't entered yet. And when it arrives, you will not be behind. You will be right on time. Let that truth wash over you. You are not late. You are not overlooked. You are not forgotten. You are being readied. And heaven never miscalculates a timeline. One day, you will tell this story of how every locked door led to a greater opening. Of how every delay became your deliverance. Of how every no you received was only clearing the path for one resounding, undeniable yes. And you'll speak it not from bitterness, but from boldness, from the authority of someone who knows what it means to wait, to trust, and to walk through when the door finally opens. So I ask you again, not as a preacher, not as a motivator, but as a fellow traveler on this path, are you ready? Are you willing to believe that favor is real, that God still orchestrates the impossible, that one divine opportunity can unlock every door that's ever been closed to you, because it's coming. And when it arrives, may you have the courage to walk through, the wisdom to carry it, and the humility to remember who sent it. Thank you.